Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. Let me do a refresh. There we go. It's timeline.
Doing it.
Hey, y'all. Sorry for the delay. Anybody who was waiting for this to show up. If you're wondering, I got one person watching. Curious who that is. If you're wondering, if you're ever doing a Facebook Live, they have this new interface where it's asking you if you want to post it to your timeline, your page, or your groups. Do not post it to your page, I guess, unless you're trying to do some business thing, as Sarah was suggesting. Timeline. Got two people. Hey. So we got one comment. Hi. I'm gonna totally botch that name. Elishiva. Judy. Hey, so today I'm hopping on this Facebook Live to have a conversation with a lovely woman, Sarah Poet. She and I have connected over the last year and a half, particularly around some content. Hi, Sarah. Judy says hi. Judy says hi, Joe.
Hey,
hi.
Hey, everyone.
Hey. For the last year and a half, Sarah Poet and I have connected, particularly around a very specific topic that is very, very close to home to heart for us both. And in fact, is a topic that we both know is challenging to approach, challenging to kind of communicate because of the sort of like, I don't know if the right word is controversy, the ease with which it can be disruptive. Yet we both want it to be talked about. We both want to see change happen with it. And so I'm really, I've wanted to have this conversation with her in a way that's kind of open, public in some form, some way. I didn't know what it was. And here we are on this Facebook Live. And so I'm going to hop into that a little bit. I want to, for any of you who end up watching this, who don't know who I am, my name is Joe Keich. First of all, that's why you see that little right there. I'm an intimacy and relationship coach who who uses relationship science, sacred relationship, and a unique blend of emotional processing and hypnotherapy techniques to help couples, singles really as well, find the sort of deep connection they desire to have with others. And I have been doing these Facebook Lives now. This is the first one because I've realized that there are some conversations that I have inside of me that I didn't know how necessary they were for people to hear. And I always have conversations that are challenging to have, but I bring them in a way that makes them engaging, makes people curious, makes people go, oh, I didn't really see that. I can totally understand that, instead of like there being some sort of charge to it. It's just unnecessary and it distracts us from the core of the content, what we really need to experience. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to start doing these Facebook Lives, having these conversations so that we can get that stuff out there and have people like Sarah Poet who have some really important and valuable things to say. And what I know about, so I'll get into the topic here in a minute, but what I know about Sarah Poet is that she's a conscious relationship expert. It's pretty wide ranging what she does. She does a lot of focus on trauma work with women, right?
Both, anyone, but primarily women. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what I want to do, because of how broad her experience is and her background, how broad her background is, I want to give her a chance to really speak for herself. And then we'll hop into the conversational topic. So we'd love for you to share with people what it is that you do, who you are.
Thank you. Sarah Poet, and my practice is called Embodied Breath, which is just an ode to the feminine and masculine in and of itself. I was a school principal and I couldn't stop thinking about all things feminine and masculine and didn't know what I would do with that. But I was studying trauma and mindfulness and relationships and how to raise kids for years as I was a woman healing my own trauma in my own body, and noticing how that came up in relationships with men and bosses and people in authority positions, and relationships and intimate relationships. And so while I was studying trauma and being a woman in a body, I was putting all of these things together and following the passion of just really continually living at this intersection of feminine and masculine, and then helping other people there as well. And so I have various programs that are for women that we look at feminine and masculine within, we look at the divine relationship of feminine and masculine. But I also work with couples, similar to you, in conscious relating and looking at how, all of the past stuff, like the past gender related stuff, the past trauma stuff, comes into the current present moment, and how we can presence with that and be with that and relate better so that we can have more connection and better intimacy and live in our hearts more so than our traumas. So that's the version I'll go with to introduce myself today, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great version. And just so you all know, we got 4 people, and anybody else hops on, feel free to ask questions here in the comment section to Sarah or me, whatever ends up coming up as we're going along, and we'll respond to them. So
yeah, I was just going to add something actually. So my relationship with men and masculine has been so deep. I mean, that's been the other side of my exploration, right? Because as a woman, I needed to reclaim the sacred feminine, but then it was like all of this relating with men and masculine that was really mysterious. And so I've gone, the gamut with some of the observations that we're going to speak to today. I've been like the unhappy wife, emasculating the husband. I've been the woman who tried, sacred feminine submissiveness in order to, get men to do the right thing, thinking that would uplift them. I've been angry. I've been all the things, and I just welcome authenticity in everyone, including myself, around these things. And so over the past few years, when I was transitioning out of working in schools and I was working with more women, men, and couples, I was asked to be a part of some groups and being, in touch with leadership of some men's groups. I think we're going to go there today. So I was always really, really intrigued about what men were doing. I'm a mother of a 12-year-old son. And when I worked in education, we were working with teenage boys. Like, teenage boys were my jam for 15 years, like the development of boys and men. And so I just wanted to put some of that, like, why am I here talking about men, into the conversation? Yeah.
And I will add to that for anybody listening. I have an enormous amount of respect for anybody who does the work on their side that answers the question, how do I show up fully to this moment? Not, hey, how do we fix that person over there so I feel better, right? So whoever that person is, they irritate me, they piss me off. It's like, if I stay away from them, or if whatever. The question I always ask is like, what does their behavior mean about me? And I think it's what always allows us to see ourselves more clearly, to really show up fully present to the moment. And I've recognized that as something consistent in how Sarah just sees herself and her relationship. So I have a lot of respect for that reason. Because it's deep work. Sometimes it can be really frustrating, irritating, and we got to work through some things. So, to the point of our being here, the title of this is Men Sharpening Men Through Peer Accountability. I could totally have a conversation with other men about this, totally. And yet the reason that I bring Sarah on is because our initial conversation when we first connected back in August of 2019 was, it felt as though she understood where I was coming from, and then we had like a mutual understanding, like, yeah, he gets it, yeah, she gets it. And yesterday I posted around this, and it's, for me, it's been decades worth of been like, heartbreak and or trauma at the hands of men I trusted. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to put a focus on this that says all men are bad, or all men create trauma, all men are problems. That's not what this is after. But we have a deeply dysfunctional problem among men, and it's why men don't connect very easily. It's why men, even though they won't say it or may not be consciously aware of it, they don't trust other men. There's this lack of maybe in tribal times, tribal eras, even tribes that currently exist, there's more of a bonding that occurs through things like men's initiations and through a respect of elders. Like, men respect their elders, and they seek those elder men out for wisdom, for advice, and there's a natural inherent trustability that exists there. And this is a dynamic that is actually healthy, but doesn't exist in our current industrialized societies. It doesn't. Like, it happens in very sparse ways, and when it does occur, it doesn't sustain itself. And so the way that things get led in our current societies, our current Western industrialist societies, really not Western, all of them, but is that there's this lack of a thing that men need to experience, to understand what healthy masculinity is, to understand what healthy male connection is, and to understand how to hold other men accountable in a way that isn't perceived as an attack, an assault, an insult. So that's what we're here today to talk about in our own ways. A little bit about my history, some about Sarah's, how this shows up in men's work, in men's groups, in leadership, men leading other men, or men just leading in general, how it shows up in our relationships as children to our parents. And any and all of that is really game on this, for me, because it speaks to the core of how we identify and really, I say fix is a bad word for it. How do we address it in a way that feels good to everybody involved? Because everybody wants it to happen. So with that said, I don't want to spend too much time talking, and I really want to engage Sarah in her personal experience. I will just say this. I have lived through a lot of trauma at the hands of men. I was raised by an alcoholic, abusive stepfather, basically the first 8 years of my life. During that time, there was a part of me that as a boy just didn't understand why me wanting to love what I saw as my father wasn't working, and why I experienced so much pain through that. Don't understand. I couldn't put it to words, but I felt it. The same thing happened over my teen years. A lot of dysfunction and having an absent father, both emotionally and physically, and then also having to fight my brother, but then also having kind of a confusion about what is normal, healthy relating, because men often perceive connection, or at least deep connection, as like, especially more so when I was growing up, as gay. It's like, you don't get personal because that's a gay thing, or you don't hold other men accountable and call them out in any sort of way because that's offensive. But all of that leads us to deeper connection. All of that leads us to have healthier bonds, and understand who we are as men. So at some point I started in getting involved with men's groups. I think it was actually technically back in 2013. I started getting involved with men's groups. I went through a Mankind Project New Warrior Training Weekend. I've led and been a part of various different men's groups. And I've learned about a lot of them. There are several out there that exist that I think highly of. And yet there's still this thing of lacking sort of a community way that it can occur, that can expand and reach, can expand rapidly, like a spreading wildfire, and involves one element that I know to be incredibly important: initiation, effective initiation, and sustained connection among men, where you can count on them to come back routinely, regularly. It's not just like you're going through a weekend and then you're like, all right, cool, good, have a good life. It's like, how do we make sure that this connection of accountability and connect and depth occurs consistently? So I notice that everywhere, I go, it's still that question exists. Even though these men are doing really great work and all the men's work they're doing, that question still exists everywhere. And that's primarily why we're here.
Mm.
So I'm going to shift the conversation to Sarah Pope because I'd love to. I want to really, really hear why you're here. I want people to understand why you're here and give you the opportunity to share with why this topic is so important to you.
Thanks, Joe. Thank you for sharing your story and for framing it that way. And so I'll just jump into a little personal sharing to begin as well. I'm writing a memoir right now, and the memoir turned out to be a memoir about my relationship with the masculine. So I've really been looking at this a lot lately in depth. And I'll say, I was raised by a father that was an alcoholic, had bipolar disorder, didn't quite know how bad the mental disability was, like while I was in it as a child. But I could see these glimmers of his true heart. I mean, he was a church going man. He cared. He donated money all over town to all of these good causes, and mentored people in the church around their finances. And then there was this darkness, this dark streak that, like, he didn't know how to deal with that. So he drank. And it wasn't until I became an adult and I was studying trauma and I was unlocking my trauma that had to do with him, but it gets messy. And I was saying, like, hey, go work on this. And he had been to like a couple of, men's weekends and things like that. And what would happen is he would go and do one deep dive and discover something huge. And I think this happens with a lot of men's work. That's why I'm mentioning it. Like, oh my gosh, I discovered this piece that really hurt. This piece of why I haven't been able to, be all of myself as a man. And he would come back and it was as if everything had been fixed. Like his ego was like, and done.
Right.
And so I was like, no, not done. And I've noticed this with men when they do, okay, so much is repressed, like you're pointing to. We don't have these rites of passage for young people. Very prevalently we do, because my 12-year-old just did one last weekend. So they're there, but we have to look for them. We don't have this as a culture unless men are seeking it out. So there's a smaller percentage that's seeking it out, right? Then there's an even smaller percentage that like sticks with it or stays in it. And by the time you find that stuff as a man, so much has happened. Mm-hmm. And you've been given so many messages that it's not okay to feel. It's not okay to be who you are. You have to be strong. You have to, we know these things, so I won't go through them, but there's a lot of pressures on men. Mm-hmm. And so I love that men are finding men's work and men's groups. And then what I would say is, when men get involved, we can like pick this apart, but there's pros and cons. There's like light and shadow. That's what I'll say. There's what we're consciously doing, and then what's unconscious that still hasn't been discovered yet. And so I celebrate men finding men's work. I celebrate going on those rites of passage weekends and initiation weekends as adult men. What I would say is one of the major issues that I see is, you get out of that one experience or two experiences, or, you're still in the very shallow end of the pool, sure, but it feels so deep compared to everything that's been repressed for so long. Right. And so there's this, newfound discovery that feels really huge and is huge, but it's still, your toes are just getting wet. Right. And so, right there's a lot of things that happen, I think, in the male psychology that that is impactful in men's work. I can keep going in that direction, but I'll pause and see if there's a question.
Yeah, no question that's coming up on Facebook Live, but I do want to add just something and let you kind of go back into it. And what you're speaking to is something that I struggle with, and there were a lot of things that awoke in me to help me see that it doesn't end. Particularly a woman in my life who I realized that, you know, there's a part of me, and I'd say, like, you know, in some ways we can even relate this to the masculine experience as like, okay, you know, like, I've done the thing, we're done, what's the next, like, you know, like, moving on from that. It's like, can we make it end now? And I had to learn. It was actually kind of a painful experience to go through. It's like, I don't want to do the other thing, not because I'm resistant per se to the doing the thing, but because, like, there was almost like a like I had to transition from it not ending, or from it wanting it to end, to not wanting it to end, if that makes any sense whatsoever. Like,
you had to embrace the depth, maybe. You had to embrace that it wasn't going to end. Sorry, I'm trying to understand.
Sure, totally. And I think that this is a good conversation to have.
This is good, yeah.
Yeah, it's like going from there's literally a thought process that a man has to go through from transitioning to, like, the idea that it's supposed to end to the idea that it doesn't end. It's kind of like a painful transitional process. It's totally part of the male psyche, masculine experience, whatever you want to call it, because so, like, okay, so I what was up? You look like you're saying.
I have a question.
Go for it.
Is that part where you recognized, oh, this isn't going to end, was that also a point potentially where you were more embracing of the feminine and the feminine in you, and
I'm glad that
the mother?
Yeah, yes, because
yeah.
Yes, because this, as I've heard it said, the feminine is it's a cyclical nature. It doesn't end. It just keeps on going. It cycles through, right? So the masculine is like, we've got to the point, it's done. Feminine is like, nope, keep going. Like, wait, we just did this. No, but it's something new. But no, it looks the same to me. Like, you know, whatever it is, it's this, like, oh, I don't, you know, it's like, yes, it's an embracing of the feminine that exists within ourselves, but also the fully embracing of the fact that if we really truly want to love our partner, really truly as deeply as they experience love, we have to embrace their cyclical, never-ending nature. Always changing, always refreshing, always cycling through something new. So yes, in that sense, it's like, I don't want to fucking give this stuff, it really hurts, but in order for me to really love her fully, I have to. And in order to really allow myself to love and experience love fully, I also have to. So I wanted to add that because it wasn't a pleasant or easy process for me to go through. So go ahead if you.
Thank you for doing that. I mean, all the time, I'm just like, men, thank you for doing the deep dives that you're doing. But I think that point right there is so crucial. Like, it's not a performance thing. It's not a, look, I went and got my badge, you know, on my MKP weekend. No, like, yes, and keep going, right? Yes, and keep going. And I think this is where, you know, culturally, women have a little bit of a head start on this. Like, we've had a couple of decades of empowerment and embracing emotionality, and maybe being more comfortable, like going into the traumas and awakening the sacred feminine, right? Like, that's been happening for some time. And this is just my opinion here, but like, men have not been given that cultural permission in the same way that women have. Now, women can be judged for that emotionality or degraded for that, but we're still doing the work. Like, I was doing loads and loads of personal work as a woman before I was ever giving myself credit for what I was doing, which I think is different than the majority of men. And so where that, like, you know, we're not culturally encouraging the vulnerability and the authenticity and what men are really experiencing. And so, I think that, I don't know, in my spaces right now, I'm holding space for women. Women are having conversations where they're wanting the men to sort of like come to the table. Like awakening women are wanting men to come to the table. Now, I think too that there's a lot of work to be done there inside of us as women, as to like, we can't expect men to do it the same way. And like you were saying, the cyclical nature of a woman, I have definitely made mistakes in relationship where I wanted to explain the entirety of the mythical, situation as I saw it. It wasn't necessary. And, it was overwhelming. So I'm not saying that the paths need to be the same, but I guess one of my points here is that I want to be realistic about what it does take.
Sure, which I just want to acknowledge that I really appreciate that you're seeing both sides and what you're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's really necessary. It's really necessary because we women can really think we've got it figured out too. And want to tell men how to be men. And that's one of the things, even kind of recently, I'm like, I don't want to tell men how to be men. I can share my experiences of what it's been like to be a woman on the other side of things. And I think that's why you invited me here.
Yes.
So maybe that's a segue into some of my experiences, with men who are a part of men's work and even leadership of men's work. And to your question originally of like, where's the accountability?
Right.
And I could not, my jaw kind of dropped when you asked me to do this call, because I've had some pretty deep experience with this, going, where is the accountability? And so I wasn't really talking about it. And then you asked me to do it. And I was like, well, that's maybe divine intervention or something.
Yeah. So let's just pause for a second on that. And
yeah.
I want to say that Jenna Hobbins says, interesting topic, enjoying listening, informative, great subject, love the conscious aspects. Jacqueline Rose, thank you, exclamation point, caps. My constant change was always viewed as my flaw, but I love it. I just want someone to view it as a positive. Now, here's what, and I'm really glad that you brought, oh, she says, Dawn Robertson, why can't we expect men to do the work? You want to respond to that? Yeah.
Saying hey to Dawn, why can't we expect men to do the work?
Yeah, Dawn says, why can't we expect men to do the work?
Oh, I expect men to do the work. Did I say that?
I don't know why she's asking it. So,
no, I expect all of us to do our work. I expect all of us, like to the degree that we are willing to in this lifetime, to bring back our, soul fragments, our soul parts, and to be whole. Like, I think that's the journey that we're on. So, I think expect is kind of a loaded word.
Right.
Like, I want to engage with people who have consciously decided to do the work. I spent 15 years in special education. I did my share of convincing in this lifetime. I don't do convincing, right? So like, I work with people who are actively engaging in it. And do I desire for all of us to do that? Absolutely.
Yeah, correct. And I agree. And it's sort of like you expect without the loadedness of how we interpret the word expect. It's like, it's like you put the intention and the energy out there that you're going to do it and that you're going to engage with people that are. And when you engage with people, it's an invitation. The communication that you have with them, it's not a, hey, why the fuck aren't you doing this shit? And you can totally say that in the tone of your voice. It's a, hey, I see you. I know you got some work to do. I respect where you're at. I'm available and understanding of that. But what I'm not available for is being pulled into your own dysfunctional patterns. I'm here.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about this as a woman, like, why can't we expect men to do the work? That's a really kind of like loaded energy. It's an energetically charged question where like, if I'm asking that question, and I recognize Dawn on here, so I'm hoping that it's okay that I'm owning this, not saying that she's coming from this, but it's charged in me. Like, you know, so I'm starting to imagine questions that women might ask, like, well, if I'm in relationship with him, can't I expect him to do his work? Well, you're an autonomous being. And so, why be in relationship with someone who isn't doing consciousness work in the first place? Or like, if that's what
Right.
you value.
Correct.
And so there's a judgment or an assessment that women often make on whether or not a man is doing his work. And I think that the more women heal our own trauma, the more we heal our trauma related to all things masculine
Yes.
and feminine, the more we're able to stand in a place where it matters less and less and less what the man does to prove to us what we need. And the more we can say, like, because we're okay. Like, I know that I'm okay regardless of, I'm just going to use us because we're here and we can handle that kind of example. Like, if you and I were considering this, partnership or something, I would be looking at like what you are already choosing, and I would be like, fielding that through my system. And then if we're in partnership and there's something that I want you to see, I would be asking questions. I would be sending invitations.
Right.
I would be encouraging. I would not be nagging. I would not be saying, like, you
Right.
have to go do this. Like, all of those are from a woman's trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Um, so I'm going to add to what you have said to this point by saying, um, as a man who has done a ton of work, and it's what's really beautiful is I get this comment whether I ask for it or not. Like, I've got it from many women. Um, it's clear that you've done a lot of work. It's almost like that exact statement has come
Yeah,
to me from many, many women.
I imagine.
And and here's what I'm going to say to that. Like, it wasn't easy. Like, it was not easy. And I'm not pretending as though this conversation is something that all men need to adopt, um, like straight away. It's like some layers that we have to go through to really be there. But it certainly is an invitation for a man to look at himself and say, look, there's no end to your discovering yourself. There's no end to the depths that are possible with you in partnership, and truly to satisfy your woman, your partner. There's an availability you have to let it go a layer deeper through your discomfort, um, through the whatever's there, awkwardness, fear, anger. Like, there's something there for you that prevents you both from deepening just a little bit more, and that's going to happen your entire life. So if there's a part of you that thinks that it's just got to end here in any way, you are holding something back that is available for you and her, and that's an opportunity for you to lead that relationship, and to learn about yourself and her more. So we'll set that aside there, because I think where we could go with that is just an entire conversation in itself. And let's focus on why we came here, which you said we can transition, and we're already good on time. And that is this piece. I go ahead and share. You said that you could talk about your experiences with men.
Yeah, and it is kind of a segue from what you were just sharing. It got me thinking, and I won't go too deeply into story unless it serves the points I want to make.
Mhm.
Okay, so like I was saying before, when men get involved with men's work and don't realize maybe that, like, oh, this is going to be very deep, or oh, this has the opportunity to become a way of life, and I'm going to, like, really go through the depths of the processes to take back my masculinity, that road is long and beautiful and brutal, probably. I would imagine. My road has been brutal to like gain myself back, you know. So I think that we can respect that in one another. But there's building on what I said before, where the potential of an ego identification happens pretty quickly and can stick around. So if a man is involved in men's work, but it helps him to feel better about himself, again, there's light and shadow in that. And so I've seen a lot of almost identification with the shadow elements and aspects of character. Actually, what's the word?
Like, as in, say that they don't see the next level because they're just focused on that, at that level of work that they've done, the shadow.
Okay, so let's say you start going to a weekly men's group and you get there and you've never been able to express your emotions safely in a place before. And there's no women there and you can talk about the women and like you can just have at it and be open. And that feels like freedom to a man who has never been able to do that.
Correct.
Right? Okay, thank you. And so in that space, like he could be fucking angry at the wife or at the mother. And he's in that group and he just gets to be that way and express it and almost drive into further identification with some of that anger, or I'll say shadow projection, right? Like the unconscious projection that often has to do with the feminine, but I'll talk about that in a moment. So when men's groups don't have accountability, which is your original point, that man who's standing there with fucking anger, right? He's not challenged on that. So I have literally heard in our local big men's group community here where I live, you can literally know that your brother is having, your men's work brother is having an affair on his wife with, you know, another woman in town. You can know that, but these brothers that stand in circle with you don't say, hey, why are you doing that? Hey, what's up with this choice that you're making?
Yes.
So because they don't want to challenge each other. And when I have challenged and asked men about that, the gist of the answer I get is, well, that would be me judging his behavior. And we're so glad that he's here in this circle expressing as he's expressing. We want him to stay here, but we want him to hold himself accountable.
Right.
But I have opinions about that.
Yeah, well, let's talk about it a little bit, because that's something that I see as well. And for any men, really anybody watching this truly, but men, because, you know, probably men who are watching this may have had experience of men's group and really love the men's work they do. So to understand that, like, this is not an attack in any sort of way. So I want you to feel that. But I have experienced that too. And what I notice in a lot of, pretty much just about any men's group, well, no, not any, a lot of the bigger, more abundantly available men's groups, they focus on emotional support. And if you're ending at emotional support with men, you're missing the evolution of the man.
Thank you.
And basically staying in emotional support keeps you deadlocked in the place that you're at. And you will never process out what's there for you. That's where you got to bring in the, like what I've learned is the most effective ways of doing this. I have, specific awareness exercises that I've used for, a decade. Meditation to a degree helps, but really when it comes to really uprooting the unconscious, meditation is limited in truth. That's where you get the emotional processing, the advanced therapies, EMDR, hypnotherapy, like those are where you really get the root of the shit out. And you have to do that sort of work. It's not just like, hey, let me go to the men where we can talk about how my week was. Sure, that's great. You get some connection there. You really get the authentic support. But if we can really bring into men's work and men's groups that next level of, okay, we're here. Yes, we're connecting as men. And even if it's not an emotional support thing, it's less of an emotional support. And there are elements of accountability and men leading other men into a sense of what that is. Like even those men in leadership are letting themselves be held accountable. Like how am I, are there ways, like looking at yourself and going like, I'm in a position of leadership. That means that I have a lot of influence. What that means is there are ways that I could be unconscious to how I am negatively influencing other men. Mm-hmm. So am I letting the men who I lead me? Am I letting those men let me see how I'm off? And sometimes it's going to be really subtle because those men who are following you are just going to want to buy into it all. And right. You've got to keep yourself in check.
Right.
So,
yes. And that feeds the ego.
Yeah.
Feels good.
And it's difficult territory because, and I see this happening pretty much with every man. I'm not going to exclude myself from this reality, but one of the things that this is both unfortunate and fortunate, I've learned about myself over the years is that because of the level of abuse that I experienced in my childhood, and I was on a workshop with Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, and I asked him about this because I didn't understand it. I was like, why am I so curious about this thing that's happening within me and with other people? And I explained to him my abuse, and he says, you're I don't know if he said unusual, but he said it's situations like yours that are very rare, and people have managed to activate their curiosity in the midst of their pain and suffering. Mm-hmm. And so I want to offer that as an invitation for men who may be wanting to do more. Let yourself get curious about the ways that you might be showing up in a way that's negative, not because there's something wrong with you, not because you're bad. This is not a right or wrong, good or bad thing. This is how do I allow my curiosity to get activated so that I can make sure that my transmission to these men that I'm leading is coming through clean and that I'm seeing myself clearly through them. Mm-hmm. So
I know that you wanted to keep this around 45 minutes, but I have one thing that I feel is so central to this that we haven't touched on yet, and I would love to speak to that.
Go for it. It's a good conversation, so I don't want to tie it up before it's ended.
So, in the last 3 years, and looking at these leaders of men's work and very personal relationships that I was having with men, the thing that came up over and over again, to keep a long story short, is men's work leaders not having a real understanding of their own relationship with the feminine, and I'll say the ultimate feminine archetype, like the divine mother, whatever you call that. And I think different people are going to call it different things. But for me, it's like we have this aspect of like very, very sacred masculine and very, very sacred feminine. To me, those two things make up the divine, right? Those two things make up all of creation. So I'll go personal. So as a woman with man trauma, like I had dad trauma, I had, religious trauma, so spiritual trauma that told me like God's a man and he expects you to do this as a woman, right? So there's like trauma that lives in women that has to do with masculine. And I can reclaim sacred feminine all day long, but until I also get right with my relationship with that, I'll say God aspect of the masculine, I'm just going to be looking for every man to make it up to me, to prove to me that I'm safe, that the world is safe, that the masculine is safe, right? So that's where that work has to be done. Yes, your partner can help with that, but I had to do that, like get on my knees in front of this, masculine. And a man must do that in front of the feminine. We could call it father and mother. Mm-hmm. So the mother wound, we don't have time to go into that, but men's work will address that men have a mother wound. There's a collective mother wound, and then there are personal wounds that have to do with our mother. We did a podcast on that.
Let me throw this in here. Yes, and let me. I want you to just keep going, but I want to translate that for anybody that's wondering what that means. So the ways that a man has felt emasculated by his mother, the ways that he has expressed himself as a boy and felt rejected by his own father, who rejects his own emotionality, the ways that a man denies himself his creativity or his desire to connect with other men because it's gay, all of those things are really what Sarah is describing here, and the things that a man has to be willing to look at and more. So if you're wondering, like what she's saying, like those are definitely a big part of it. Go ahead.
That was like such good feminine masculine team up there. Like I was like whoosh, and you were like, let me break it down. So thank you. Yeah, and I would say like any place that a man is really wanting to prove himself to a woman and saying, like, why doesn't she get it yet? And he's hooked that way. Or he's saying, well, fuck her and women for not loving me the way I am, right? Like all of those things are expressions of a mother wound, which all men have. And so you can't necessarily, I'll stand behind that statement. You can't get the whole way there in men's work. First of all, because men's work isn't covering this, to my knowledge, I don't know of one. Second of all, because you're usually going through the warrior, lover, magician, king, like archetypal framework in men's work. And a lot of people, a lot of men and leaders will say, oh, we're covering the feminine when we're doing the lover archetype. You're not necessarily, I've not seen it done to the depth that I would like to see it done. And I think each man, after you've really gone through those archetypal practices in, men's work that's pretty commonly found, those 4 are going to be your archetypes. After that, you need to dive into the relationship with the feminine. That is your relationship with the feminine aspect of God and creation, the divine mother. Because until you have that relationship, a man is going to project a portion of his identity onto women and say, aren't I doing enough yet? Aren't I pleasing enough yet? Haven't I done enough of my work yet? And he's looking for this measure, and he doesn't quite know who he is yet until he's got to kill that, it's called the death mother or the dark mother. Like he's got to kill that in him and come back to, a really glorious relationship in his heart with the feminine. And that's where we find deep, deep honor in a man. That's where it's no problem for a man to hold another man accountable when he knows that kind of surrender and love in his heart.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's a reverence for the feminine, but it's also beyond a reverence for the feminine, because I think a lot of good men have a general reverence and respect for the feminine. And I find that men are very confused if they have gone through this archetypal men's work and they are generally good men or respectful men. They don't understand why they're still suffering. And, it's because of, in my observation and perspective and my spiritual practice, it's because of, they're still placing the God aspect of feminine onto woman. Like I was talking about placing, all of masculine onto a man. Joe, you couldn't be God to me. If I, and if I want you to be God to me in a relationship, you're going to get stressed out. I'm going to be completely dissatisfied.
You're saying by saying God, you're saying kind of elevating our partner so as to be kind of more better.
It's ultimate safety, ultimate acceptance. It's like the ultimate father and ultimate mother.
Mm-hmm.
And we're craving that. We're craving that as people because we've been, severed from that long, long ago, especially the feminine. But when the feminine was kind of severed from society, a dark masculine rose up. And so that's why we misunderstand both masculine and feminine, but that's the topic to my TEDx. So people can just watch that.
Here's what I want to translate what you're saying from
Yes.
my experience in a way that maybe will land on any men who are listening. There's something that I work with men often in one of my coaching that I do, and really any space, workshop, program, whatever. And it's that seeing your partner as something that's more valuable than you. And that's where the like trying to please her all the time, but she's never happy, and I just want her to be happy. Like, dude, get your attention off of making her happy, and she'll probably be more happy. Like, here's the thing. Like, there's an important aspect of what I hear with what Sarah is saying is you see God through her. You see God through your partner, but you also see God within yourself. There's not an identification of elevating you, elevating her in any way whatsoever. Both of you experience God through one another, and as the reality of it. God exists within all of us. And more than that, really, it's the self-discovery. It's the letting things continuously evolve so you can discover each other new through the level of work that you're doing, and not saying it's over and it's done because I have arrived now that I've done this little bit of work. It's all of that. It's collectively all of that, so that, you start out with the opening yourself, as she says, through something like an initiation over a weekend, and you let yourself be discovered anew through that, and new identification of how you can express, communicate, connect with men in a deeper way. And then you see yourself through your partner more clearly, and you let her be the source of, not the entire source, like you've got work to do on yourself independently and with other men and whatever, but you're the way that a relationship evolves when you let it and when you allow yourself to see it is that you can really go profoundly deep within yourself through allowing your woman to be a reflection of you, and vice versa. And it's we create depth and opening and consciousness and conscious love through each other when we allow that to be a reality. So that's my interpretation of what you're saying, and what you were sharing around that. So
I would say, I'll just add like one tiny little thing.
Go for it.
Another way to say it is like when we have an unresolved trauma in us, how we can be, when I say like looking to the partner to be God, it's looking for the partner to fill that part in us, right? Versus when we're on our own path of coming into that wholeness. And yes, the relationship is going to reflect like, ooh, I have a big charge right there. That means that there's something here for me to discover. And you look at your partner as, I think you said, a reflection of God. Is that, I don't know if those are the words that you used, but that's what I thought.
A reflection of yourself, like seeing yourself more clearly through them, but you could probably say that as well.
Yeah. And so, well, I'll go with like, if you look at your partner as someone to heal your trauma, you're in a trauma bond. If you're looking at your life as like, okay, I'm going to keep doing my work, and this person is here to reflect, God or consciousness to me, then what arises is not like, give me that so that I feel full, so that I feel okay, so that I know that the masculine is okay, so that I know that the feminine is okay, right? That's not how we're using partnership. We're saying we're both evolving beings, and you're reflecting to me these aspects of consciousness where I can grow. So that when we say conscious relating, we're coming out of the trauma bond.
Right.
Like, will you do this for me so that I can trust again, so that I trust men or women again? And so when I'm talking about this aspect of men's work, it's going, beyond the men's work, going deep into that. What is my relationship with the feminine? And where do I still need her to fill me up? This woman, where do I need her to fill me up? Versus, where else do I get that? Oh, I didn't get it from my mother. I'm not getting it from her. There's so much anguish in men right there.
Mhm.
Like that feminine wound. Like, where do I get this met?
Right.
And for that, he's got to go beyond the human form to the essence of the feminine.
Yeah.
And it lives in him, and it lives in the divine, and it lives in this woman.
Yeah, you're talking about the unfortunate nature of our culture seeking validation through our partner. Yeah.
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 And
Totally get it.
often we're seeking to heal man or woman trauma, or heal our relationship with
Yeah.
feminine or masculine in that way, and we don't even realize we're doing that.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
the motivation is the trauma. The symptom is our seeking validation through them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Totally. And that was definitely something that I had to work through myself. Cool. So we've got Mitzi. I don't know if you're watching, but you will be able to watch this later. I'm going to tag Sarah so it'll show up on her Facebook page. You can watch on mine, on hers. Natalie says it's been a wonderful live. Thank you for sharing. You're welcome. Okay. Do you feel as though there's anything else that needs to be added?
No, thank you so much for letting me add that last part, because when I think about leaders in men's work, that's what I wish they understood.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I wish they understood, because like I said, from that point, accountability is natural.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see that. So, and I think we could say that when a man goes to men's work, men's groups, initiations to seek validation, he keeps himself stuck in that pattern. So looking back to identify what motivates that, and we've said this multiple times, Sarah, the mother wound, as she says, which would come in the form of any sort of experiences of emasculation or rejection from your own father when you were seeking emotional connection or expressiveness and being comfortable in that place, being open-hearted and not having that mean that you're gay. Anything like that really is the opportunity for you to look at yourself and see how that's showing up in the form of seeking validation through others, through other men, through women. Like I've actually had many men reach out to me, seeing that I'm open, that I'm, I have the ability to connect. And when I connect with a man, it's like, it's authentic, it's real. I'm here, I'm present with you. And then men respond as if they want more of that. And I'm like, you're misunderstanding what's happening here. I'm not trying to have me be a safe place for you. I am that, but that's not how I evolve connections with men. Like you're with me, you're choosing to be at the same level, you're working through your stuff. I'm connecting with you for sure. I'm available for that, but there's something for you to see there about yourself. So let's close this. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
You cool with that? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
This is definitely a longer conversation than I normally tend to have, and I'm totally cool with that. If the juice is fully out in this conversation, that's what I'm here for. So great conversation. Thank you for being on. Thank you for being available for this conversation, particularly in my acknowledgement to you is throughout this call, it's been something where you've brought your attention back to what women can do, what you have done, and that it's not just, hey, men, we need you to show up more and do your work. It's which can often be how things get communicated. It's all of us. And this is why I think there's more value in bringing a woman onto this, to have the experience. It's like she's owning her thing. I'm owning my thing. We're not placing blame on anybody. We're saying, look, here's what's happening. We need to do our work. Y'all need to do your work, not as an insult or anything. It's like we become better people through it. So thank you for being on. Great conversation. Is there anything finally that you want to say at all before we close out with sharing? People can contact you or anything.
Well, I'll just share where people can get in touch with me, if that's okay.
Sure, and I'll add to our comments, but go ahead.
Wonderful. Yeah, my website is sarahpoet.com, and I do hold space for men as well, because given what I was just talking about, it's a wonderful thing to have a female mirror that is not mother, wife, like where the pressure is not there. And so to work out some of that feminine stuff with a woman is very, very powerful. So if men are interested in that, I'm happy to hold that space. It's safe space. It's really unlike anything else you've experienced with a woman, where you're in a neutral space with a woman. It's really wonderful. And when women like hire a male coach, it's like it's very similar medicine. So I definitely encourage folks to do that. But thank you, Joe. Thanks for being you and for wanting to have this conversation and for all the work you do.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
I got Simo, I don't know if I'm saying that right, brother. Thank you for exposing some of the challenges that are present as we grow and heal our past relationship trauma. Absolutely. Yeah, so for those of you curious about working with me, Joe Keich, joekeich.com, joekeich.com, Joe Keich coaching at Gmail, same joekeich coaching at gmail.com, and my Facebook page is facebook.com Joseph Keich. And I also have an Instagram, Joe Keich. So you can reach out to me at any one of those, see my content. And also, if you're curious in working with me, I do one-on-one coaching. You can reach out to me about that. But I'm also creating a 6-week program called Legendary Love. It goes into a deep dive of how to hold your partner. Like, this is on both sides, men and women, but also the integration of things like the masculine and feminine polarity, and mystery play, like really tying it together in a way that allows you to connect with your partner in a very, very deep way, attune to them with more precision, more energetics, and then also really being able to bring that out into your real life so you can have it there. I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, it's pretty fun. I'm looking forward to it. So if you're curious about that, reach out to me. We can talk about whether or not you'd be a good fit. Would love to have you.
Oh my gosh. Well, okay, one more thing then. So I'm holding this program for women to heal their relationship with the masculine.
Bam.
It's called Fall in Love with the King. And if people are interested, the web page is like still in development until next week. So you can just email me, sarah@sarahpoet.com, or just send me a message on Facebook and let me know that you want the link, and I'll get it to you when it's out.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Beautiful having you on. Love being connected with you.
You too.
Great conversation, and we'll chat soon. Yeah.
Yes. Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff.
Ciao.